Joining us right now, one of the attendants of that big historic speech by Pope Francis yesterday before a joint meeting of Congress, it's Senator James Inhofe of the great state of Oklahoma. Thanks for joining us this morning, Senator.
Well, it's nice to be with you, Larry. The problem I had yesterday was that you guys in the media had a copy of his speech. We didn't on the floor. And, you know, he's kind of hard to understand anyway, and with the acoustics down there, I was almost guessing what he was saying.
Yeah, I know, and it's interesting. A lot of people have faulted the Pope. I as well. I like it when a Pope comes here and speaks in English. I think it's a wonderful thing. But let's face it, his English is not that great.
Well, particularly in that setting, yeah. So I didn't understand at the time a lot of the things that he said, and right afterwards I got the printed copy, and there's some things in there that kind of surprised me. First of all, you didn't ask me this question, but I'll answer it because I think I see it coming. I know you well enough.
Does it have to do with the climate, Senator?
Oh, it does have to do with the climate and abortion. Let's look at both those things. Those are the two things that had the more anticipation in that audience.
Well, let's start with the climate because, listen, that's what we often love to talk to you about. You famously brought that snowball onto the well of the Senate, and we were giving you a standing ovation here from the WMAL studios. So what did you think of his statement on the climate?
Well, frankly, that's the thing that disappointed most of the liberal Democrats that really wanted that to be the issue and the focal point, because what he said was really not anything that was it says to avert the most, I'm reading it now, serious effects of the environmental deterioration caused by human activity, and called upon Congress to be involved in that. Well, you stop and think about what we did. I was an original co-sponsor, Larry, way back in 1990 of the Clean Air Act amendments. Now, since that time, we have increased our use of energy consumption by 47%, population's grown by 53%, and yet we have far, far cleaner air than we ever had before. And I saw that as, keep up the good work.
Yeah.
And because we have actually done a great job. What they were hoping, I'm talking about the people out there that are living for this issue and are trying for its resurrection, they were hoping that they would actually use it. But they didn't even use either term, global warming or climate change. So I know that they were really disappointed in that. And the other thing that I think that in a subliminal way it came out, which may have caused him not to be as overt as he otherwise might be attempted to be, was the realization that the poor are the ones that are really hurt by the programs that that they have on the global warming.
Really? What did he say about that? I missed that.
Well, he didn't, and that's the point.
Oh, I see.
What they have said to him ever since he came before he came to the United States, been stressing the fact that the Pope normally his major concern is going to be what can we do for the poor. Well, the regulations that would come with any type of cap and trade or the power plan that the president has are going to cause that to be a huge handicap for poor people. We had a guy, Harry Alford, testify before our committee just in the last couple of weeks. His name was, he was the National Black Chamber of Commerce guy. You might remember him. And he talked about that program of the president, his climate policies will, and this is a quote, result in a cumulative job loss of 7 million for blacks and nearly 12 million for Hispanics by 2035. He's made a real study of this. Well, that's not something that the Pope is going to be rejoicing over, and I think that's one reason that he didn't specifically talk the way that a lot of them wanted him to.
It's a great point. Our guest is Senator James Inhofe of the Sooner State of Oklahoma, and we're reflecting on yesterday's historic speech from Pope Francis. And when you were there and you heard the pontiff say to your colleagues there that defending human life at every stage of its development is imperative, a moral imperative, knowing that your Democratic colleagues there just 2 days ago wouldn't even allow a vote on a measure that would protect human life 5 months into its development when we know that fetus can feel pain. What did you think of that? And did you hear a whole lot of smug cheering from the Democrats at that point, Senator?
No, you didn't. But what you did, when he said to protect and defend human life at every stage of its development, we're talking about the fetus. And we're talking about, and he's very, very strong on that. And he didn't see any standing and clapping. And by the way, we were all, and I thought it was a pretty good idea. We're trying to discourage both the House and the Senate, Democrats and Republicans, not to be responding in a political way to his speech, which
Right.
I thought would have been a good idea. But however, there are some who could not resist it.
Yeah, it was shameless. It really was.
It was. But I was very proud of him for going as far as he did there, and I think it would have been unreasonable for him not to. So he had two things there that I thought were good, and that certainly was significant.
In general, Senator, and we're almost out of time, but, I've seen a lot of Democrats run in front of cameras today saying, the Pope said this about climate change, and, they're interpreting it their own way, however they want to, and they're saying this is a mandate and we not have to take his recommendation. I wonder, when Prime Minister Netanyahu was here, and he begged and pleaded the Congress in the exact same way that the Pope did, begged them to not go along with this Iranian nuclear deal. A lot of Democrats ignored that message, didn't they?
Well, they did. They did. Now, in everything else that when you're talking about the abortion issue, of course, they didn't want that to even be talked about.
Yeah.
But in looking at those guys, and I happen to be seated next to a Democrat who is on our side instead of the other side by mistake. We didn't get that response, but I looked across there, and they were so hoping that they would come out and use climate change as to vocalize it, and they didn't do it. So they're pretty upset by that.
In general, Senator, it was a historic day, and what was your feeling? You are the first senator from Oklahoma, along with your colleague Senator Lankford, to ever hear Pope speak before that body in that chamber. Just on a personal level, it must have been one of those goosebump moments.
It was, and Larry, one of the things that we noticed as he went around, starting off in Cuba, he's very receptive and very sensitive to the audience he's talking to. You notice with all of the problems that they have still in Cuba, and particularly with Castro, Cuba, the human rights violations, the political prisoners that are still there, he never said a word about it. Then he went to the White House, and we have a president there that's one of the strongest pro-abortionists around, and he never said anything about that. And I think that's the reason that I didn't expect that he would do it to this joint session. Very quiet. I only wish I could understand what he's saying.
Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma, thanks so much for joining us, and, it's always good to have you. Don't be a stranger.
That's great. Thank you, Larry.